I want to show you how to take the work you've done and save it properly so that you have it saved where you know it is, and perhaps even a backup, and save as you go, that sort of thing. It's important that the work you put into Photoshop is saved. This is an image of a old fire truck with it totally cut out from its background, with the polygonal lasso tool, and gone around every little opening, every little wire, every little thing that's there, uh, and to include the shadow. You see the shadow is a separate entity, and I virtually traced the shadow with all of its little shadowy marks on the ground so that I could have that shadow to go along with the car. You can see it, or the truck. You see, without it, it looks kind of just hanging in the air. So the shadow is important. And the original photograph had the details, of course, of the fire truck and of all the little nooks and crannies that are there with the shadow that you carefully cut out and then put on a separate layer. Now, I have a background layer that doesn't necessarily mean it's my final background, but it is a color that helps me see the difference between the red and the orange. That's the shadow layer. The truck itself is cut out, and now I have other things that I've added to it. This lettering here, the lettering, the LBFD is up here. The lettering that says what city it's from is right there, and I've got a steering wheel in the windshield. See, there's the steering wheel that I put in the windshield. Also, I've got the original photograph had a driver, and he's behind the glass. I've cut him out and I put him and his hands and the wheel separately so that I can either have him in or out of the picture as desired. For now, I'm going to take him out, but leave the steering wheel in. That's layer right there. Now, this image, as it sits now without the driver, I will save this as a Photoshop image document with all these layers in it. Once I've decided that's the image I'm going to take, I'm going to save this as this document with all the images. Then I'm going to save it again, but this time I'm going to flatten the image. I'm not going to do it right now, but then all the image flattened, and there's only one layer. That's the image you send to the printer. That's the image that goes out to be processed. Because as it is right now, if I sent this to the printer, all it would see would be this LBFD. That's the top layer. And the processing computers and things that work towards the printer, all it would see would be that. And I don't want just that in the picture. All right, now, the first issue, as you work on it, you should be saving. But when you get it to a final state, you go File, Save As. Now, if you hit just save, it's going to go back to the folder you previously came from. Sometimes I get nervous about that. Let's see, which folder was I in? Where is it going? Sometimes you can lose things by just hitting save and it goes to documents or it goes to some other file. I want to see where it goes. Save as. Now, I've named this Classic Fire Engine. I put marks in the space in between, either a dash or an underscore. The space is actually a character, but you don't see it. And I put those there just so that the computer is seeing a space and is identifying that there should be something there. I'm going to save it to the desktop. Now, the desktop is one of several places you can save it to. Here are some recently opened files. I might be working out of this new images or this these other titles here. I might be working out of that. Or I could put it on the desktop. I can put it in documents. That's part of the your system will have a place where you can store documents, but do you really remember that it's there? You can put it in movies, although it's not in movies. You can put it in a lot of places. You can put it on another hard drive. These are two hard drives attached to my computer, and I can put them there. Or I can go there and find a folder inside of that. But I'm going to put it, for simplicity, on the desktop. Then that means I'm going to drag it from the desktop to some other file that I will open and know where it goes. Now, so the desktop appears here. You got to remember too that your naming is important. How do you remember 3 months from now, what was that fire engine thing I worked on? Do I remember Classic or do I remember Fire Engine? Maybe I should save it as just Fire Engine dash classic, so that the first code I think of is Fire Engine. And if that's the case, then I would change the name. I can remember this classic because I know where it's going. But remember when you name these things and put them someplace where they go. The format is going to be a Photoshop document. I could save it as a JPEG if I was going to send this flattened version, say by an email to someone. I'd have to flatten it down or compress it into a JPEG. That means it would open on any computer, PC or Mac, and it would not take a long time to send over the email system. But JPEG and Photoshop are the two that I use the most here. You might save it as a Photoshop EPS, or because that's another file that will open on several different computers. And maybe some of these others are down here that would satisfy what system you're going to send it to, but for mostly Photoshop and JPEG are the ones that I'm going to use. So I'm going to save it as a Photoshop, and it shows up in that window. And it's saving the layers. You don't have to worry too much about this, but it's saving the layers, and it's taking the color information with it. And I'm not making any notes or checking any spot colors, or not concerned with alpha channels or any of this other stuff. So layers and embedded color, that's a default anyway. So when I say that, then I say save, and it's going to go to the hard drive. Now I've already got that sitting on my hard drive on my desktop, but I'm going to replace it in case I changed the name or made any changes. My latest updates right here, replace. And then it says, you know, you want to go through all this stuff? Yes, you do. This is just maximize compatibility. Why wouldn't you not? So, okay that. Now, when I click through Photoshop, I look back here and I'm seeing my Finder and my little scene screensaver. If I go to Finder and say hide others, then the Photoshop is hidden, and here's that classic Fire Engine .psd, a Photoshop document on my hard drive. Then I can open another file and say, let's say I want to put that in this file, so I would drag it into and put it in some file, subfile or whatever is there, and then it places itself, and I know where it is. So that the file you put it in and the name you give it, and that you do save it often. Don't wait till the end of the time that you're working on it, because what if I'm working away here and there's a power outage and my computer goes off? I've lost it up to that point. So you should file save as often as you're going through the working stages, so that by the time you get to the end, one more file and there you go. And then you have your layered save, and then do it one more time. Let's see, I'll show you how now. Go to the options and say flatten image. And you want to discard the hidden images, like the driver. I'm going to discard him because he's not turned on. I'll say OK to that, and see it all comes down to one layer, and it says background and it's locked. So it's now a locked thing. It's not going to make any changes unless you come here and change the name of that and unlock it. But here again, file, save as, and this time I'm going to classic Fire Engine, and I'm going to put an underscore and an F. Now the F tells me, that's my code to me, that it is a flat document. And when I save that onto the desktop in a Photoshop document, it goes there, and then I have, here's the other one. This is the one that has the layers, and this is the one with the F on it that says, reminds me that it's a flattened document. This would be the one I would process. If I was going to send an email, I'd save it again as a JPEG document. Let's do that. So there it is. It's the F model, and file, save as, and I come here to Photoshop, and I'm going to change it to a JPEG, and you see it changes to classic Fire Engine underscore F JPEG. When I save that, I'm going to save it at its maximum. You can make them low, medium, or high JPEGs. That depends on how big the document is and how fast it will send. I'm going to send it at its maximum 12. I hit that OK, and then back here again on my desktop, you can see here is the Fire Engine flat JPEG. That's the one I'm going to email. If you want to see how big that file is, select it like it is now and hit Command key and the I key. And it will show you this file, Classic Fire Engine. And right here it tells me it's 1.5 megabyte. Now that will send easily over the internet. Let's see what this one up here. I'm going to select this one and hit Command I. And that one is 9 megabytes. So it's quite a bit bigger than the 1 megabytes over here. That would take a long time to send that through the internet. Let's see if this flattened one is any different. Select that one, Command I, and it is 4.2 megabytes. So the one with all the layers is 9 because it's seeing all that and has to account for all that. The one where it's flattened is 4.2 megabytes. So we flatten and compress things together. And then the one that's a JPEG is 1.5 megabytes. That will send over the internet much faster and quicker. It's going to get there in fairly good order, definition, so it can be opened and used and printed to the capacities of the computers and printers on the other end of your email, but it does compress it and make it easier to send. So, saving, organizing, naming, checking out what your files save as, checking out what your the name of it is, what document it is, in this case a JPEG, where it's going. Now eventually you may move that to another file, but see where you're going and process these things in such a way that your work is organized and you can find it later on when you're looking for it. One other thing to look for, if I go back to my Finder, let's say hide others. Okay, if I wanted to find that Classic Fire Engine, I could come up here to my little question thing and I could put in there, if I remember the word classic, and then I remember it is fire and then engine. Okay, so I type that in there and it's taken a while for it to look for it. And then it will show me right there. Now, I did this right now, today, you can see that. But if I did it last week or last year, if I remember the title, Classic Fire Engine, it finds it. And it found the F model, and it found the Photoshop model. And it's the regular and the flat, so there they all are. And if I say, okay, I want to open that now, then I just click on the one I want, and it will open it back in the screen. It's already opened in there now. But that's the way this organization can help you find things down the road. This is one way of finding it, is by going to the Spotlight in a Macintosh. On a PC, there are other methods to do that, but by them remembering and typing in the name of the thing, you're going to be able to find it. So organization really helps get your work done, assembled and reassembled and recalled as you need it.